Hello everyone and welcome to TV Talks, the show where I take a look at both the good and the bad of what television has to offer. Today is an uncovered gem. This show has slowly been getting a lot more popular, and that is very good. Because I've been a fan of this for quite a while, it's about time I tell you all about it. Whatever happened to Robot Jones? Cartoon Network's most mistreated show ever. Now, there have been other shows that Cartoon Network has snubbed horribly, like Time Squad or Sheep in the Big City, but none of them had a worse treatment than Robot Jones. And now, I touched on that a little bit in my Invader Zim video, but it's time to talk about Robot Jones, and then afterwards, you're gonna find out whatever happened to Robot Jones. So it's about a character named, well, Robot Jones, who lives in a metropolitan part of Delaware and goes to human school with human people. And yes, they are fully aware he's a robot, so it's not like Zim where he's trying to disguise. No, his name is Robot Jones, everyone knows. But also like Zim, he is there to gather information on humans, but it's not to hurt them, it's just to study them. See, robots are kind of treated as almost like a minority group, the same way monsters are in Avenue Q. They're considered outcasts by a lot of people. They're considered almost second-rate to some people. So they're kind of pushed away from society. So Robot Jones is sent out to gather information on these silly humans, while also coming across a lot of colorful characters. There are his interesting friends that are kind of all the same. They're probably the weakest characters in the show. Shannon Westerberg, a girl with hideous headgear that Robot Jones feels like it's her mechanical side and falls in love with her, so she's basically the love interest, although she's a bit of a jerk. Then there's Principal Madman, who looks like Hitler, which is actually probably intentional because he's very prejudiced against all robots and wants them all to conform to human society, so yeah. But then there's the villains, the Yagman twins. These two Devo-obsessed orphans, live inside the school and want nothing more than to tamper with Robot Jones's systems and use him as a weapon of destruction. These kids are psychopaths in the making. They love nothing more than to cause pain. They're like Orin from Little Shop of Horrors, just nothing but misery and evil go through their heads. And I love it. A lot of these episodes kind of revolve around simple concepts like Robot Jones having to do X thing and learning about X thing. The first episode, in fact, aside from the pilot, is all about the Rubik's Cube and actually features the first ever appearance of SpongeBob SquarePants. Well, it's a talking Rubik's Cube voiced by Tom Kenny using his SpongeBob voice, but I count it, although it doesn't count. There's also him having to shower in PE, him running for office in the class, that kind of stuff. It's a very simple show, but it's a lot of fun. It's not one of those laugh-out-loud hilarious ones, but it's almost kind of a character study for Robot. The whole thing just revolves around him as a character and bouncing off all these other characters. The show's main focus was in fact developing the cast, and the humor comes off of how they bounce off of each other. And it's really well done. The voice acting is great, but the one who steals the show is Macintalk Jr. as Robot Jones himself. It was a very good decision to get a computer to voice a robot. And you know what? It actually works! Surprisingly, they were able to get a lot of emotion and inflection out of this thing. Granted, we did find out later that they had to phonetically spell everything out and had to pitch and speed some stuff up, but that doesn't really matter. It still made a great performance. The animation is very reminiscent of Schoolhouse Rock, a very clear throwback, and they don't try to hide it at all, to the point where some of the backgrounds look like they're even drawn on with crayon. The episodes are all pretty fast-paced because they try to fit in a lot of plot into 11 minutes. But they never feel too rushed, nor do they ever feel like they stay on for too long. And that's a very good thing. This was a show that was built to last. You see, in college, I've learned one thing from my editing teacher. Simple premises can be hard to write for sometimes, but that usually makes for a longer show. Think about it. Shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender and Gravity Falls, as great as they are only meant to go on for so long. Or there are things like Hey Arnold, which do have a very loose premise, but they're very confined to one area. So that means that they definitely do have a ticking clock. Then there is a show like this that can be about literally anything. Not even all the episodes are about Robot Jones going to school, it's about him interacting with humans. How much of a simple premise is that? Just a robot talking with humans and learning everything about their society. There are infinite possibilities with this. Now, granted, not a literal infinite. Every show is going to expire at some point, But this is clearly one of those shows that could have gone on for a long, long time with its very loose premise and very devoted staff. It's very obvious that they had a lot of people behind it that really cared. Unfortunately, there was one key ingredient that didn't care. Cartoon Network themselves. As soon as the show was greenlit, actually even before, Robot Jones had failure written all over it. Let me tell you whatever happened to Robot Jones. See what I did there? So, the creator originally came to Cartoon Network to pitch a show about pirates. However, for some strange reason, Cartoon Network had a phobia about greenlighting a show about pirates. They didn't feel like it would be easily marketable or not appropriate for kids or some garbage like that. So instead, he had his backup show, a show about a robot trying to get information about human society. And it took a while, but they finally greenlit it after a long period of waiting. And then it all just came crashing down from there. They had all these restrictions and all these mandates because, like a lot of shows, such as Ren and Stimpy, Invader Zim, or Ed and Eddie, there were a lot of risque jokes that were forced to be removed, to say the least. Now granted, not as heavy as something like Zim, but a little further than some stuff like Ed and Eddie, because unlike Ed and Eddie, this did not get through the censors. But it wasn't even just that. It was all these minute little things with like certain character interactions or certain words they didn't want Robot Jones saying. And then when the first season was ready to come out, it got a lot of promotion, actually. It got a surprising amount. Even the creator was surprised at just how much they got. But after the first, 3 episodes, that was it. Even something like Time Squad at least got to appear on Cartoon Fridays. This did, but in a very late time slot, and Robot Jones and his friends never hosted the Cartoon Fridays thing, which always helps to generate viewership. Like I said, even Time Squad got to do that. Sheep in the Big City's lucky, at least they got consistent commercials up until the show's end. This, they just stopped advertising it midway through the first season. And the first season's only 13/7 episodes long. Let me tell you why. So, they originally ordered 2 seasons of the show, which is, I always think, a bad idea. Whenever a show hasn't come out and you order 2 seasons right away, that's a bad sign and a bad gamble, because what if it's not a hit? Then you're stuck with this extra season nobody wants. That's what happened with the Problem Solvers and the Nut Shack. But that's what happened here. But they only produced one season at a time, like they usually do. But what did Cartoon Network decide to do? They decided to split the 13-episode first season into 2 seasons. Not kidding. Pretty scumbag move, which they would later do to Uncle Grandpa about a decade later. And then the big one came in. The recast of Robot Jones. Remember how I said Macintosh Jr. was great as the part? Well, Cartoon Network was horrified by it, and they said it wasn't easily accessible or non-commercial and all that kind of stuff that networks like to say, when they really just mean we don't like it. So they got this random kid named Bobby Block to redub the second half of the first season, which became the second season, and they even did the real Ghostbusters route with the whole Peter Venkman character controversy and had Bobby Block redub all the episodes previously. Now, this is a bad idea for a number of reasons. 1, you're ignoring your mistakes. Shame on you, trying to pretend that they never happened. Second, that is a lot more extra time and work and money going into something that really doesn't matter. You could just say that Robot Jones got a new voice installation chip or something, or some sort of software upgrade that makes him sound more like a human. But then there's the third problem that nobody ever brings up. It ruins the character of Robot Jones. Now, these characters are in middle school, like about 8th grade, or very close to high school as it hints. Bobby Block sounds like a 4th grader. He makes him seem very, very young, especially in comparison to the other characters like the Yogman twins or Shannon. And another thing is that Robot Jones is very snarky and cynical. He knows exactly what he's doing, even though he doesn't actually. He believes he does. And he also believes he knows better than everybody. There's a whole episode about where he doesn't want to interface with humans anymore, so he befriends a vacuum cleaner. So when a computer does it, it sounds natural, but for some reason when the human does it, it just sounds forced. Nothing against the kid, I just don't think that he did a very good job. It sounds very weird. For example, the original Robot Jones had a very sharp tone to it when it talked. This kid always has the same kind of delivery. It always kind of sounds like this, and like his voice always goes into an arc. It doesn't sound very good. So, tired of all the interfering and all this constant change and meddling, the creator stepped down, and rather than hire somebody new, Cartoon Network just decided to shut the show down and forget it ever happened. And to this day, Robot Jones has never gotten a DVD release and barely ever any mention, taken off of the website as soon as it happened. Yeah, this was definitely not the way to treat the show. So you can say that a show has been treated worse on Cartoon Network all you want, but just look up the backstory to Robot Jones and you're gonna realize the horror that happened. But really, the show itself was just fun. It wasn't anything spectacular, but I don't think it was trying to be. It was just supposed to be a simple, kind of funny, kind of quirky show that could have lasted a long time, given the chance. But instead of getting in a prosperous environment, it just got squished and had no chance of doing anything. And it didn't help that the time it came out either was right behind Codename Kids Next Door and right after Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, so sandwiched in between these two mega hits was this. Granted, they didn't know about Kids Next Door at the time, but Grim and Evil, or Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy as it's known now, came out right as this one came out. So, which one's gonna win? The one that came in second place for the big pick, or the one that won by a huge margin has been hyped for a long time? I wonder. But either way, Robot Jones, or whatever happened to Robot Jones, gets the Archibald seal of approval. Which just now makes me realize they never changed Robot Jones' voice in the theme song. And no, it was not a copyright reason why they changed it. That was just a PR stunt to make them look better. It's a complete hoax. Speaking of hoax, there are also some unmade episodes, supposedly, that have been debunked as hoaxes. Like the Risk one and Robotic Graffiti. Those have been dubbed as fake. Although there are some about an Oprah parody and all that are been confirmed real, but we're never going to see them ever. Unless Netflix wants to do some sort of revival, which is highly unlikely. But Robot Jones was a fun show, and I'm glad I watched it, and I'm glad I own a cell from it. What did you guys think of whatever happened to Robot Jones? Tell me below, I'm excited to hear. See you guys later.
Good night, everybody.